You've probably stepped on this plant dozens of times without realizing that it's a healing powerhouse. So today I'm going to take you from pulling to picking this very common garden weed. Welcome to Weeds with Worth, where I take you through a lot of the common weeds in your garden and help show you how you can take all of that time that you spend weeding and turn it into time that feels well spent, time that you are harvesting things that are actually useful from all the extra fluff that's in your garden. The goal here is to not just learn about the plants that naturally grow around us, but also to help mitigate a lot of that frustration that you might feel, that a lot of gardeners feel when it comes to having to pull weeds year after year in your garden. So today we're going to be looking at plantain, and this actually has nothing to do with the thing labeled plantain at the grocery store. It's completely separate. However, they do have the same name. There is narrow-leaf plantain and broadleaf plantain, and they are essentially the same medicinally, so whichever one you have is absolutely perfect. Both broadleaf and narrowleaf plantain are going to grow from a rosette close to the ground. Sometimes they're completely flat and sometimes they are a little fluffier. It just kind of depends on how much nutrients is in the soil and how much room they actually have to grow. It probably also depends a little bit on foot traffic. If it's in a high foot traffic area, you might find that it is flatter than if it is in an area where it doesn't get very much foot traffic. It can actually fluff itself up. The most recognizable feature, in my opinion, are these very telltale veins that go all the way from the base of the leaf to the tip. And this is the same for narrowleaf as well as broadleaf. They have only these straight veins and they go all the way down the leaf. So in addition to the veins going up and down the leaf, the way that you'll know it's plantain is all of the leaves come out of one central point, and at the base of each of those leaves you'll see a purple or reddish color. There are no stems on the plant until the plant puts up a flower stalk in midsummer, and that flower stalk is green and the top of it ends up looking a little bit like grain. Plantain, like a lot of weeds, is one of those plants that really thrives in neglected or recently disturbed soils, or soils that are compacted or very low in calcium. And you can actually use that knowledge to your advantage. If you have plantain growing in your garden, it might actually be a sign that your soil is compacted or it is low in calcium. And so what these plants do is they send their very fibrous roots down into the soil to start collecting nutrients from deeper than most plants can go. And then they're reaching really deep to bring up nutrients from lower, so that when they die with their leaves on the surface, those nutrients are now going to be higher up, more available to the majority of plants that have shallower roots than plantain does. But also because it has this really deep taproot, that makes it really difficult to get rid of, and that is probably why it earns its reputation as a weed, because you can mow it over, you can trample it, and as long as that root stays intact, the plant is going to come back. It is a perennial, so it regrows year after year, and then also, of course, it makes seeds and likes to seed itself all over your yard. So if you have some plantain, chances are you actually have a ton of plantain. Plantain leaves are fully edible. You can eat them at any stage, but for fresh eating, of course, you're going to want the younger, more tender leaves. And then with the older leaves, you can actually kind of cook them down like spinach and add them to anything from soups to stir fries, anything like that. And as I mentioned previously, what this plant is doing is reaching down its long taproot and bringing up a lot of nutrients from deep in the soil. So this is actually a very nutrient-rich plant, specifically high in calcium and vitamins A, C, and K. If you've ever heard of plantain before this, chances are you've heard of it in the context of using it as kind of an in-field first aid for things like insect bites. So if you're on a hike or you're out somewhere where you don't have access to first aid and you do get bit or stung by an insect, the general wisdom is that you can take a plantain leaf and chew it up and then put that kind of mash onto the wound, and it will help jumpstart the healing process for you. In addition to being healing topically, plantain is also sometimes used to be internally healing, specifically used for things like digestive diseases, specifically chronic conditions. And I actually have a personal connection to this. So my mom, she has been dealing with this terrible digestive disease, and we really cannot figure out what exactly is going on with her, but over time she's become sensitive to more and more foods, and it really just seems like eating in general upsets her stomach and causes a lot of issues. And so once I learned about plantain, I started saving and drying the leaves for her and adding them to a tea blend for her. And ever since she started drinking this tea regularly, she says that she's seen massive improvement in not only how easy it is to eat normal stuff, but also she's seen that she's been able to add things back into her diet that she previously felt like she was sensitive to, that she had food sensitivities to. So I do believe that this herb can be pretty helpful for people in specific situations. Now, when you're going around and picking plantain, obviously in this context, I'm assuming that you're picking it out of your garden, which is a curated soil that is free of pesticides and other nasty sprays. However, if you're listening to this and you don't have plantain in your garden, but you do want to forage it, always keep in mind that you want to forage it from places that are unlikely to have been sprayed. So you don't want to be taking it from sidewalks. You don't want to be taking it from near roadways. You don't want to get near any of that. So just make sure that the area you're foraging from is safe. So this plant is actually not native to the Americas. It was brought over here by the European colonists. And because of this, and because of its ability to seed itself and be really hardy, it earned itself the nickname the white man's footprint, because the Native Americans saw it kind of following in the footsteps of wherever the colonists went. Additionally, if you were paying attention in English class, you might have heard that this plant is referenced by Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. He's having a conversation with his friend, and they're talking about trying to get over Juliet by falling in love with somebody else. And they start talking about ways to cure a burning, and he jokes and mentions that plantain leaf would be good for that. So that's a really interesting connection. If you remember hearing that in English class, I think that's pretty neat. If you've used plantain in your life in any way, I would absolutely love to hear about it in the comments. I believe we can really learn a lot from each other if we just listen to each other. If you want to see more episodes in this series, I will leave a link right here at the end of the video for you to go catch up on all of the other Weeds with Worth. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.